إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So inshallah ta'ala, in continuing with Umdatul-Ahkaam, we're going to revisit matters related to wiping over the socks. Now, the hadith that aforementioned, that we mentioned from Umdatul-Ahkaam, they mention al-mashu al-khuffain. And al-khuffain, this is referring to leather socks. So the question that came from this was, can we wipe over socks that are not leather socks? Okay. Now, in Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he mentions that it's permissible to wipe over anything that is used to cover your feet with the same meaning. Because the illah is wahida. There is one wisdom, one reason for wearing anything on your foot anyway. They all share the same reason. That's something I alluded to last week. But also it's been mentioned in Bulugh al-Maram عن ثوبان رضي الله عنه قال بعث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سرية فأمرهم أن يمسحوا على العصائب يعني العمائم والتساخين يعني الخفاف رواه أحمد وأبو داود وصححه الحاكم وهو حديث صحيح يعني إسناده صحيح. Now, so in this hadith, it mentions that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent an expedition. We mentioned sariyatan is those who went for battle or the likes without the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If he participated with them, it's called ghazwa. Okay, we mentioned that in Sirah. This is not there. I'm reading from another hadith. Okay, but in the book it's going to be hadith 22 that we covered. So he mentioned فأمرهم أن يمسحوا على الأصائب يعني العمائم والتساخين يعني الخفاف. It mentions when it says al-amaim wal-khifaf, in explanation of the word asaib wat-tasakhin, the word amaim and khifaf, this is from Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah in his explanation of the hadith. It's not part of the wording of the hadith. So of the things that is mentioned, it says مسح على الجوارب, wiping over the socks. ذهب قوم إلى جواز المسح على الجوربين وهو مذهب عطاء والحسن وسعيد بن مسيب والنخعي وسعيد بن جبير والأعمش والثوري وابن المبارك وأحمد وإسحاق وحكى ابن المنذر إباحة المسح على الجورب عن 9 من الصحابة. So these are from the tabi'in and those who came after them, the earlier scholars, first and foremost that were mentioned, who were of the view that you can wipe over the socks. So it's not only a contemporary issue. And then it's also mentioned that Ibn Munzir, rahimahullah, he narrated that 9 of the Sahaba were of the opinion that you can wipe over the socks. And this is also based on this hadith. And from them is Ali ibn Abi Talib, وعمار وأبي مسعود وأنس بن مالك وابن عمر والبراء ابن عازب وبلال وأبي أمامة وسهل بن سعد رضي الله عنهم. Now, they used the hadith that we mentioned and he said تساخين تشمل الجوارب. they mentioned the word tasakhin, it includes the socks. Why? Because the word, and he mentioned, Al-Khattabi rahimahullah, he mentioned في تفسير التساخين, he says يقال إن أصل ذلك كل ما يسخن به القدم من خف وجورب ونحوه, is everything that is used to warm the feet, to make the foot warm, from leather socks to normal socks or anything else that is worn on the feet for it to be warm. نعم. فهذا يدل على جواز المسح على الجورب. That shows the permissibility of wiping over the sock. So it ends the argument, because someone will come and say, oh, akhi, but it's only a few minutes, you just take your sock off. It's not about being a few minutes. It's about the fact that Allah loves that His concessions are observed the same way His obligations are observed. So a person doesn't restrict themselves to say, oh, but my madhab, it's based on the evidence, ad-dalil. So, okay, if you follow that you can't wipe over the socks, then that's no problem for you. But you can't impose that upon someone who follows that they can. Why? Because in the Salaf, we have those who have preceded us in this, from the Sahaba and those who came after them. So it shouldn't be an issue that causes conflict, or someone say, I'm not praying behind that person. Wallahu musta'an. It reaches that level.
So what do you do for the shoes as well? Evidence.
La. Because the shoes, you take it off. If you kept the shoes on, then it would apply. If you don't take the shoes off, because it covers, and the shoes, if they cover all your foot, then it could apply. You see, that's a discussion also. But if from you take your shoes off, then khalas, the masih is gone. You see. But they say if you're wearing socks, then the masih is on the socks, not the shoes. But if you wasn't wearing socks, for example, you're not wearing socks, you're only wearing shoes, and you're traveling, and you're not going to take your shoes off, you're going to sleep in your shoes, all of these things. That's a different discussion. Now, but as for the socks, the main thing is the socks. لأن الخف يشبه الجورب ولا يشبه الحذاء. The sock is similar to the leather sock. It's not, and you wouldn't say the leather sock is similar to the shoe. No. You see.
Can we do on these ones?
Yeah.
Which is very thin.
It's fine.
What about if you have to do a master, then you take off the socks?
Yeah, we're going to talk about these things, inshallah. And also, something that's important to understand is that these matters, they're not built upon aql, just one person's logic. La. It's based upon that which the Sharia has commanded us with. And from that is the simple fact that when we wipe over the sock, we don't wipe the bottom. The bottom is where the dirt's going to be. You see? But we wipe the top. Now, of the things that's mentioned, what is better, wiping over the sock or washing the feet? Now, wiping over the sock or washing over the feet? Of the things that is mentioned, as I alluded to earlier, is that al-afdal al-akhdhu bil-rukhas. What is better and preferred that you take the concessions. Like if you're a traveler, then it's better for you to what? Wipe your socks. But when it comes to praying as well, it's better to pray shortened and combined than it is to pray the full four. When you're praying, don't break, you only move your tongue, not a voice. in silent prayer, don't be like, just say, move your tongue, but don't bring up a voice. And if you do sujood al-sahw, you don't repeat tashahhud. You just do the sujood al-sahw and then you give salam, just as a benefit. Inshallah. But it mentions, for example, when it comes to this mas'ala, there's 4 differences of opinion. 1, تفضيل الغسل الرجلين وهو قول الشافعية والمالك وأبي حنيفة لمواظبة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عليه في معظم الأوقات لأن الغسل الرجل هو الأصل. It mentioned that you have those who prefer washing the feet than wiping over the sock, and that is the Shafi'iyya, Malik, and Abu Hanifa. I say that is what the Prophet Muhammad did most of the time. The second, تفضيل المسح على الخفين وهو قول الشعبي والحكم وحماد وأصح روايتين عن إمام أحمد لأن فيه مخالفة أهل البدع وإحياء للسنن ولأنها رخصة والله يحب أن تؤتى رخصه كما يحب أن تؤتى عزائمه or عزائمه. It meant the second opinion that is preferred to wipe over the socks than washing the feet. Why? Because it is in opposition to Ahlul Bid'ah. You have Ahlul Bid'ah that don't accept wiping over the socks at all. Even the leather socks, they don't accept that. And that's the Khawarij and the Shia. وَمَنْ عَلَى نَهْجِهِمْ, and whoever's on their methodology. So to be in opposition to them, then this is good. And to revive the Sunnah. Because this is the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, to wipe over the socks. As we learned from the hadith, إِنِّي أَدْخَلْتُهُمَا طَاهِرَتَيْنِ. He mentioned I had worn them in a state of tahara. So he didn't take them off, he wiped over them. That's the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The third opinion, قال ابن القيم رحمه الله ولم يكن يتكلف ضد حاله التي عليها قدماه وإن كانتا في الخف مسح عليهما ولم ينزعهما وإن كانتا مكشوفتين غسل القدمين ولم يلبس الخفين ليمسح عليهما وهذا أعدل الأقوال في مسألة أفضل من المسح والغسل قاله شيخنا والله أعلم. هذا القول هو الراجح والله أعلم. And the fourth opinion is that they say that Imam Ahmad said they are the same. And one of the things that is attributed to Imam Ahmad, he said they're the same. But as for the third opinion of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said a person doesn't bear themselves with the opposite of their circumstance. Meaning, if you are wearing socks, then it's better to wipe over them. But if your feet were uncovered and you're not wearing socks, then it's better to what? To wash your feet. Now,
Anytime? Any circumstances?
in wudu. Now, so if you're wearing socks upon tahara, then it's better just to wipe over them. That's the sunnah. But if you wasn't wearing socks and your feet was covered, and your feet is uncovered, it's not to go and then put on socks to wipe it. It's better that you wash your foot. For example, that's what Ibn al-Qayyim is saying here. Now, I say that's the most just of the opinions. But the main thing is that when it comes to wiping over the sock, the condition is that they've been worn upon a state of tahara. Prior to putting them on, you was in a state of tahara. In a state of wudu. Or now.
What's the proper way to wipe over?
Just wipe over the top, that's it. Just wipe over the top, that's it.
Like you didn't spit out your fingers?
No, just wipe over the top. As for someone who's got istihada, irregular bleeding, so abnormal bleeding that's not from the menses, or someone who's got silsilat al-bawl, that they always have droplets of urine come out, can they wipe over the socks? If they've made wudu and they put socks on, can they wipe over their socks? So they have to make wudu for every salah. Now, they make wudu for every salah. Imam Ahmad says they can wipe over their socks. And also, Imam Shafi'i, some of those who follow his madhab, they say yes. And some of them say yes, but majority of them say no.
So if you follow that opinion, you'd expect to take your socks off and wash them every time?
Yeah. But they mentioned that they consider the opinion of Imam Ahmad to be the stronger opinion. No. Because regarding them, their tahara is complete because they have an exception due to their circumstance. Another issue that's mentioned is if I wash my right foot and then I put a sock on, and then I wash my left foot and then put a sock on. They say you can't wipe over the socks. And they say based on the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, he said, inni adkhaltuhuma tahiratin. The word of the day, he said, I entered into them in a state of purity. So I'd finished making wudu before I put them on. So he said, if you wash your right foot and then put on your right sock, and then after that you wash your left foot and then put on your left sock, it says, Imam Ahmad wa Shafi'i wa Ishaq wa Malik, they say, لا يجوز المسح على الخفين. It's not permissible to wipe over the sock. وحافظ ibn Hajar رحمه الله mentioned لم يبح له المسح عند الأكثر. For a majority, they say that it's not permissible to wipe over it based on that hadith that we just mentioned. Now, but it says أصحاب الرأي يحيى ابن آدم وأبو ثور ورواية عن أحمد ورجحه ابن المنذر وابن حزم وشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله إلى جواز المسح لأنه قد أدخل كل واحدة من قدميه بعد غسلها. As for these ones that we mentioned, they said it's permissible to wipe over them. Why? Because they only put the socks on after having washed each part of it. So they didn't just put they didn't put the left sock on having not washed the left foot. La. It was done after washing. Even though the right foot was done by itself and then the sock on, left done by itself and put the sock on, they were still both washed prior to putting the sock on.
Before you wash your feet, before you put the socks on, you have to wash your feet before.
You have to do wudu.
Yeah, proper wudu. Yeah?
Proper wudu.
Washing your feet, and then once you put the socks on, and then you can wipe anytime you breaking your wudu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 1 day.
Is it the condition 1 day?
And if you're a traveler, 3 days.
And it must be washed beforehand.
Yeah.
Before you put.
You have to make wudu beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to do a complete wudu beforehand.
So what about someone who enters in the masjid without wudu, and then they do wudu and then put the socks on, but they do that for every salah? Is that?
They take off the sock every salah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. They remake their wudu every salah. So they take off their socks and then put it on.
It's better not to take off the sock. Once they make wudu the first time, entering the masjid, and they take the sock off, then they put the sock on. The next time, don't take your sock off, wipe over it. That's what's preferred to be done.
And do the rest of wudu and then just wipe over the sock.
Yeah, at the end, without taking your sock off.
You know the condition that you said, is it for 5 daily prayers, or is it like 24 hours? You can keep the
So,
wipe.
we're going to talk about the time. So, I'll clarify the time shortly. Okay. Another discussion before we go into the time, as mentioned, is هل يمسح الخفين إذا لبسهما عقب التيمم? Does a person wipe over the socks if they've worn it after making tayammum? Ibn Qudama rahimahullah في المغني, he says فإن تيمم ثم لبس الخف لم يكن له المسح. If a person makes tayammum and then wears the sock, then it's not permissible for them to make masah, to wipe over it. لأنه لبسه على طهارة غير كاملة, because they've worn the socks on a tahara that is a purification is not complete. لأن طهارة ضرورة لأنها طهارة ضرورة, because this is tahara based on necessity. وبطلت من أصلها فصار كاللابس له على غير طهارة. So it's not correct from its asl. So it's like the one who's wearing them without tahara. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimah, he says فهذا في من تيممه لعدم الماء أما من تيممه لمرض كالجريح ونحوه فينبغي أن يكون كالمستحاضة. قال وتعليل أصحابنا يقتديه نقله عنه الزركشي في شرحه. He said this is, for example, the one who makes tayammum because there's no water. As for one who makes tayammum because of a sickness or a wound, then for them is to be like the mustahada. Al-mustahada, the one who has irregular bleeding. Imam An-Nawawi rahimah says if the tayammum is because there's no water, then the majority say it's not permissible to wipe off the socks, and that's when water becomes available. When you're going to make wudu the next time and water is available. So now, when you made tayammum, there was no water. But now you're going to make wudu because now water is what? Available. He said, بل إذا وجد الماء وجب الوضوء وغسل الرجلين ونقل المتولي نعم. So he mentioned, so if there is water that is present, then it's an obligation to make wudu and to wash the feet. As for some of the Hanabala, they say it's permissible for them to wipe over the sock after tayammum.
So that would be other than water as well.
Pardon?
That would be other than water that you're wiping on the sock with.
No, if they're making tayammum, there's no wiping the sock. This is when you're making wudu after having made tayammum. So when you made tayammum, you wore your socks then.
And then you keep it on.
And you didn't have, because there was no water. But now you need to make wudu again because there's water. You see?
Sheikh, let's say you made wudu Maghrib time, prayed Isha, and you went to sleep, but you kept your socks on.
The timing thing's going to come.
Oh, okay.
If this is related to timing,
Yeah.
I'm going to clarify the timing. So of the things that is mentioned, if you wear socks and then you break your wudu, but you wore socks after being in a state of purity, but then you break your wudu, and then you put on a second pair of socks on top of the sock you was wearing. You put on a second pair of socks over the one that you was wearing, or a shoe, an overshoe. It's jarmuq. It's such what that word was. It says, قال ابن قدامة رحمه الله لا يجوز المسح عليهما بغير خلاف. It says not permissible to wipe over them without any difference of opinion. Because this is one who, if you've made wudu, then you put your socks on, but you've broken your wudu, and you've put a second pair of socks on top of the socks you was wearing, or an overshoe. Can you wipe over the second layer now, the second pair of socks or the overshoe? He's saying there's no difference of opinion, you can't do it. Rather, you'd have to take off the second pair of socks and wipe over first one.
The first one.
Yeah.
And then also do it with the second one, or just the first
No,
one?
no, just the first one.
So you have to take off the second one.
The second pair of socks that you put on.
You have to
And you wipe over the first pair of socks only. Now, the next issue is socks that have holes in it. Of the things that is mentioned, some say if the hole causes any of the foot to be exposed, then it's not permissible to wipe over them. The second statement, if something is apparent from the sock, is apparent from the foot, then you wash that part of the foot and you wipe the rest of the sock. A third opinion, if the holes are small, it doesn't show much of the foot, then it's permissible to wipe over it. But if there are many holes that expose most of the foot, then it's not permissible to wipe over it. A fourth opinion, if a person has holes in the sock that may show a toe or two toes, it's permissible to wipe over it. But if it's 3 or more, then it's not permissible to wipe over it. The fifth opinion is that as long as a person is able to walk in the socks, then they can wipe over the socks. I say because if the holes would prevent wiping over the socks, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have clarified that. And that's what Ibn Mundhir, he mentions, rahimahullah, said, this is the statement that I take, that even if there's socks, that when the Prophet permitted to wipe over the socks, it was general. He didn't mention any exceptions. So if there wasn't a permissibility based on the holes in the socks, he would have mentioned that. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he mentions, as long as a person has holes in the socks and they're still called socks, the name is not removed from it. You can still call them socks, and they still serve their purpose, and you're able to walk in them, then it's permissible to wipe over them. Because you might, sometimes you see a lot and someone's wearing a sock, but half of their foot is out the sock. So you wouldn't say this is a sock anymore. You're not going to say this is a sock. It's more like this is a piece of material now. Because the purpose of a sock is gone. Okay? That kind of sock you can't wipe over. Now. So if majority of the place of wiping is covered, then alhamdulillah, you can wipe over the sock. As for how much of the sock do you have to wipe? So the things that we know, we have to wipe over the top of the sock. But as for how much, then you have Shafi'i wa ashabahu wa Thawri or Abu Thawr wa Dawood ila al-ijza' bi kulli ma yutlaq alayhi mash wa inqal. So he mentioned that anything that is considered to be wiping over, even if it's a small amount, is sufficient. That's the first opinion. Imam Ahmad mentioned it's obligatory to wipe over majority of the top of the sock. Abu Hanifa mentioned it's obligatory to wipe the amount that is equivalent to 3 fingers width. Now, Abu Abdullah, he mentions لم يأتي نص صحيح في تقدير القدر المجزئ من المسح فتعين الاكتفاء بما يطلق عليه المسح وهو قول الشافعي ومن معه فهو الراجح والله a'lam. No clear evidence has been mentioned regarding how much you have to wipe. So whatever is still within the name of wiping, then that is sufficient. Whatever is considered wiping and understood to be wiping, then that is sufficient. So as for the time, when it comes to time period of wiping the sock, okay? When it comes to timing with regards to wiping the sock, then the time for someone who's muqim, not a traveler, is 1 day and 1 night, 24 hours. As for the traveler, they have 72 hours. When does that time start? From the first wipe, not from the time you put your socks on. So let's say, for example, because sometimes, you know, when you're fasting, you don't need to go to the toilet and stuff. You don't break with you hold wudu for long. Let's say I made wudu at dhuhr time and I wore my socks. But I didn't break my wudu until after Maghrib. After I broke fast and prayed Maghrib, then I broke wudu. I didn't make wudu again until, for example, 9 p.m. to pray Salat al-Isha. You can wipe off your socks until 9 p.m. the next day. It starts from that time, that the first time you wipe. And for the one who's traveling, it'll be 9 p.m. 3 days later. No.
Is there any niyat on their intentions? Do you have to make any intentions
For what?
for wiping over?
No, it's part of the wudu. You don't need to make intention for it.
No?
No.
In that same scenario, let's say, for example, you made, like, just as you said, but you prayed Isha, you didn't have to make wudu, and then you went to sleep, and now you wake up for Qiyam or Fajr, can you wipe then as well?
If it's within the time.
Yeah.
So let's say the first time I fell asleep in my socks.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep after Isha. I only wiped over my socks for the first time after Isha.
Yeah.
I go sleep for 3 hours, for example, and I wake up for Qiyam al-Layl. I can wipe over the sock. Yeah, so I'm waking wudu and wiping over my sock.
No, what I'm saying is I've heard someone say that they say they put their socks on at Maghrib time, they prayed Isha, they've gone to sleep, they haven't taken their socks off, and now they wake up for Fajr, and then they wiped at Fajr time. That's the first time they wiped
Yeah, that's fine.
because they think because they went to sleep that might alter something.
Sleep doesn't do nothing.
Okay.
It's just rest. It has no impact at all.
So long he was in a state of tahara, so
No, you don't have to be in a state of tahara your whole sleep.
yeah.
It's just putting them on in a state of tahara. That's the condition. Now. But if you take your socks off, does that break your wudu? No. Because some people, they understand that if you made wudu and you wiped over your socks, when they say when you take your socks off, you have to wipe, you have to wash, you have to make wudu again. La. The only thing it breaks is miss. You can't take them off and then put them back on and then wipe again after that. Before you wipe again, you have to make wudu again properly and wash your feet. So removing the sock breaks miss only. It doesn't break your wudu.
But in his example, he would repeat his wudu but wipe over the sock.
He was making wudu because he's sleeping. So he's making wudu for Fajr. And instead of washing the feet, you don't take your socks off. Just wipe over the sock. Yeah, that's it.
And wiping is just the top. It doesn't have to be.
Just the top. Only the top. Wiping under the bottom is bid'ah. To wipe the bottom of the sock is bid'ah. Because Ali ibn Talib, he mentioned, لو كان الدين على العقل لمسحنا أسفل الخف, if the religion was based upon logic, we would have wiped the bottom of the sock. And we don't do that. That's not, so only the top. Yeah, that's it.
So you have to do it from here. All the way to up here.
No, just enough, yeah. That's it, yeah. No.
Does it have to cover the ankles as well?
Yes. So the sock has to be up to cover up to the ankle.
I'm seeing that when you wipe it, not too
Just wipe the top of your socks, that's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Just the top of your sock.
So you're wearing shoes, yeah?
Yeah.
You have to take your shoes
Take
off.
your shoe off and then wipe the sock. No. When it comes to, if the time of wiping sock comes to an end, what do? Some say you wash your feet only. So let's say you still have wudu, you haven't broke your wudu, but the time for wiping has come to an end. Abu Hanifa, he says you wash your feet. The Madhab al-Hanafiya, والثوري وأبي ثور والمزني والأصح عند الشافعية is also a Shafi'i method. ورواية عن Ahmed, just one narration of Imam Ahmed, not his actual opinion that he took to. So you have to wash the feet only. It's sufficient to wash the feet only, not do any other thing of wudu, just wash the feet. The second, that some say you have to continue the wudu. So you have to do a new wudu, and that the previous wudu is broken. And it's called الزهري وابن أبي ليلى والأوزاعي والحسن ibn Salih وإسحاق وهو أصح الروايتين عن أحمد. This is also opinion of Imam Ahmed. Third, إن غسل رجليه عقب النزع كفاه وإن أخر حتى طال الفصل استأنف الوضوء به وقال هو مالك والليث. It mentions if they wash their feet straight after taking off their sock, then it's fine. But if they delayed it, then they have to make a new wudu. The fourth opinion, there's nothing upon them. They don't wash their feet, nothing. They do nothing because their tahara is correct, and that is the correct opinion. Now,
So in the fourth opinion, the time doesn't really matter.
pardon?
So in the fourth opinion, the time doesn't matter.
No, it's not about talking about does that time ending break your wudu. That's what we're talking about, breaking your wudu. Nothing. The only thing that breaks your wudu is that which comes out of either the back or the front passage. That's it. The things that have been mentioned clearly to break wudu. As for the time ending of wiping on the sock, that doesn't affect your wudu in any shape or fashion. No. Now, when it comes to the issue of someone who wears their sock, and we're going to conclude on this, they wear their sock before they travel, and then they travel. So a person, they wore their sock, and their first wipe was whilst they were before they traveled. And then they travel before the end of that day and night. How long do they have to wipe over their socks? It says in this, there's two opinions. One, that they only wipe the sock for a day and a night, just like a person who is not a traveler. And then they have to take off their sock and do wudu again, and then they can start 3 days as a traveler. And then the second opinion is that they do it as a traveler. They do it as a traveler. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he says, that opinion is strong. And he mentioned this is like the person who entered upon, or the time came to him, and then he's a traveler, then it's correct for him to, if the time entered upon him for the salah, but then he traveled, then it's correct for him to pray the salah as a traveler. He doesn't have to say the time entered whilst he wasn't a traveler. So a person the time for dhuhr has entered, and then they travel. They can still pray the traveler's prayer when they reach the destination. They don't have to say, no, the time had already entered before you travel, so you still have to pray 4 rak'ah for dhuhr. La. But they say, what is the strongest opinion, and Allah knows best. And look at, when you see the manners of the scholars, what do they say? The stronger opinion, and Allah knows best. It's not definitive. That's what we have to remember. It's not like this is the end of it. This is the strongest opinion according to one who's explaining the masail. So it doesn't mean that it's the strongest opinion for everyone. Someone else may consider another opinion stronger. And he mentioned why, because the concession of 3 days and 3 nights, it came purely for the traveler. It was mentioned purely for the traveler, not the one who combines between being resident and traveling at the same time. Now, wallahu ta'ala a'lam. But that's of the things that we wanted to mention, of more details regarding wiping over the socks. Alhamdulillah, is something that is discussed in detail by way of the scholars. Now, and again, a person follows the evidence. So whatever is deemed to be stronger of the evidence, then that is the position that one should take, and not become fanatic and a blind follower of any particular individual or madhab. That's what's not praiseworthy, to be a blind follower. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. نسأل الله التوفيق والسداد لمن يحب ويرضى. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Yesterday